Welcome to the Alpha Warrior Show. We're excited to share diverse perspectives and expert insights with you. Please note that the views and information expressed by our guests are their own and do not necessarily reflect those of the Alpha Warrior Show, its management, or our partners. Each of our affiliates and sponsors and partnerships is a separate entity, and their opinions are their own. Today's content is provided for information and educational purposes and should not be taken as specific advice, whether it be financial, medical, or legal. While we strive to present accurate and useful information, we cannot guarantee its completeness or relevance to your specific situation. We provide all information as is and encourage you to consult with a professional advisor to address your specific individual needs. Your use of any information from this broadcast is entirely at your own risk. By listening further, you agree to identify and protect the Alpha Warrior Show and its associates from any claims or damages arising from your use of this broadcast content. Changes to this disclaimer may be made at any time and will be done effectively immediately upon posting or broadcasting. Thank you for tuning in, and we hope you find the episode both informative and thought-provoking. Listener discretion is advised. Oh, that gets me fired up. Testing this thing on. Of course, this thing's on. Welcome to the Alpha Warrior Show. I'm your host, Alpha. Today is going to be a great show. Why? Because it's always great to have, the spectacular guests that I have on. But when you get to have a great guest who's also a friend, that's going to be a good time. And today's show is not just a guest, but it's somebody who is a very close friend and someone I admire, a true patriot in the fight. We all, especially because we're in election season, talk about, is censorship around the corner? Is censorship already here under the guise of, I may not deplatform you, but it doesn't mean you got the reach? A lot of questions, and people say, well, we need a new home. Well, today's show, we're going to cover what that new home looks like and how you can help us get there. But before we do, let's get into our first sponsor, because Alpha's got to keep the lights on, peeps. Be prepared. It's easy. It's fast. Rich are buying gold. Yes, I'm talking about precious metals. Yes, I'm talking about my partner, Gold Co. Let's cover the digital dollar on this one. Listen up, you guys. Right now, it looks like the government is pushing for a digital dollar. We know where that's going, which could mean every penny you could spend can be tracked and controlled by our government that you trust oh so much. If that's true, then your entire life could depend on the people you don't know, don't like, and definitely don't trust. That's why smart Americans are opting out and putting some of their savings into real gold and real silver. So to help, you can go to alphalikesgold.com to get your free 2024 gold IRA kit from my partners at Gold Co. It shows you how to protect your hard-earned money with physical gold and silver, even if it's in a retirement account. And as an American citizen, a legal one, you could score up to $10,000 worth in free silver just for safeguarding your savings. So at the very least, arm yourself with the knowledge about your options here. Don't be a sheeple. Go to alphalikesgold.com right now to get your free 2024 gold IRA kit. And for those that are wondering, I'm driving, don't have to pull over. As in all the shows I do, all of the links and descriptions to my guests, my partners, my affiliates, sponsors, all that is down. All you got to do is click the link. It'll take you straight there. Our last commercial, and then we're coming back with some content, our commercial-free content, America's favorite mustache, you guys. I'll see you in 60 seconds.
When I started MyPillow, it was just a problem solution, one product company. Well, since then, with the help of my dedicated employees, we now have hundreds of products, some you might not even know about. To get the word out, we're having a $25 extravaganza. 2-pack multi-use MyPillows, $25. MyPillow sandals, $25. And for the first time ever, our 6-pack towel sets, you guessed it, just $25. Our brand new 4-pack dish towels, $25. And I've never done this before. Premium MyPillows with all new Giza fabric, any size, any loft level, even king size for only $25. And there's so much more. So go to MyPillow.com or call the number on your screen. Use your promo code for our $25 extravaganza. Order $75 and over. Your entire order ships absolutely free.
$75 more, absolutely free. Like I said, those links are down in the description, you guys. And don't forget, it's not just MyPillow, my store. Promo code Alpha works at both of those. And I do appreciate you guys buying stuff from Mr. Lindell every week, because like I said, I do get commission off that, and it helps keep this show alive and helps keep my family alive. With that, you guys, ladies and gentlemen, I want to welcome back another exciting episode of the Alpha Warrior Show. I have an exceptional guest that's going to be joining us. I told you guys, he is my friend. I am talking about Jason LEHR, an entertainment and technology professional with a deep understanding of music and film industries. Jason has an incredible team that's been hard at work on groundbreaking project called CREADO, which promises to revolutionize the way entertainment and communities come together in one seamless platform. I had a conversation with my best bud earlier today, and that was the word that we kept talking about, seamless. For those that have been with the Alpha Warrior Show for a while, you're going to remember Jason from a few years ago when we first brought him on to talk about the concept of CREADO. And well, today we're aiming to unveil how far they've come and what's in store for the future. CREADO was born out of a necessity to provide artists with the tools and technology they deeply need to take back control of their content, distribution, earning potential. Just imagine a world where artists can manage their own terms of service, deliver audio, video content, integrate podcasts and broadcasts into social audio, and engage directly with you and me, the fans, all in one place. That's what CREADO is all about. We're going to dive deep into the details of that. And to just kind of show why it's so important, I got a cool little flick that I'm going to play here. It's just over 2 minutes. And after this, I'm coming back with a guest. Stand by for a great show.
Social media. It started as a fun way to convince your friends you were better than them while secretly hating your life. But then it developed into the dominant way of sharing political information to annoy all of your acquaintances.
I still prefer doing that in person.
We know.
But isn't it great we're able to spread information so much more easily than we used to? Of course. Being able to communicate with people all over the world is awesome. But we can only do that if the people running the social media platforms don't use their power to censor viewpoints they disagree with.
They don't do that.
Well, 75% of Americans seem to think that they do.
You were saying?
Well, so what if someone gets censored every now and again for spreading fake news?
But it's not just fake news that gets censored. Like when Facebook censored an NPR report on how school shooting statistics are inflated, or when they labeled the Declaration of Independence hate speech.
Well, okay, Tim, I agree it's not always perfect. But don't you think Facebook and Twitter do have a responsibility to stop misinformation?
But that's just the thing. Who decides which news is fake? There are a ton of examples of fake stories that get shared all over social media with no problem. But other stories get instantly censored. The people writing and training the algorithms have a ton of power.
And what if they're just using it to shut down opinions they don't like? Twitter's CEO recently acknowledged that conservatives working at his company feel afraid to express their views.
There's a reason that most Americans don't trust large social media companies to combat misinformation.
Guys, where do you think Seamus went?
Ow! Ah! Cut it out! Stop it! Ow!
Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this, check out feed.org for more educational content. Thank you.
I always got to make sure you guys know where that content came from. I thought that was absolutely an hilarious way of showing real time what we deal with as content creators, producers, and, just everyday people that just want to cover information. And that's why I am now bringing to the stage the man with the solution to not just this, but so much more. My buddy, J-Man, how are you doing, man?
Hey, good, man. Appreciate you having me back on. I think it's been a couple of years, as you said, but things have changed, and let's reintroduce the audience to what we're doing.
It's crazy how fast time goes by, man. As the other day, somebody asked me, they're like, "How long you been doing this?" And it doesn't feel that long because I'm still learning. And people like yourself and our other friends contribute so much to my learning and my growth that it's just, I'm like, man, we're approaching 3 years, this upcoming August. Like, that's crazy. So with that, let's start here, J-Man. Let's start, with the basics. What inspired you to create CREADO? And when you did, what did you see in the entertainment industry that kind of drove you to even develop this platform?
Well, excuse me. It started, it goes back at least 20 years, to be honest, working in and out of Hollywood, whether it be in music or on film projects, and having a lot of those friends in the industry that would, even if I'm not there, they were just, there was all these drips, right? And, unfortunately, conservatives used to have their own little kind of, cutout in Hollywood. Well, not unfortunately, but fortunately, but it eventually got hijacked later. So the industry itself has always been, an entertainment club. You're either in the club or you're not in the club. So you've got, different level of artists that, you know, some were partisan, some won't, but a great majority of the people in the industry really don't care about politics. They just want to go to work, get paid, do great projects. So approximately, I want to, it started before that, but really in 2010 ish, kind of when streaming kind of started to kind of really take over, is when the narrative shaping and early blackballing started to happen. If you didn't toe the line, you didn't believe how they believed, or go out on in public and say what everybody else was saying, that it started to really segregate itself. So it's not, it was a quiet problem that turned into a larger problem, as evolved over the last 15 years. And we've been waiting for that Overton window to kind of shift back, and we're, we can talk about all that, later. But yeah, it's been the worst hidden secret, right? That you're either part of the club or you're not, right? You're either getting invited to those parties, which nobody wants to be at anyway, or you're not, right? So, like myself, I did a lot of things that were uncredited, right? Because I didn't really care about my name on a film and stuff like that. And besides, most of the time when you do it non-credited, you get paid more up front. So anyway, that's a quick backstory on that.
No, and I'm very familiar with your entertainment and your tech background in the industry, and it's fascinating to me when I listen to you or James talk about these things. What kind of influenced the vision of CREADO as far as, was it like, did you see, you obviously address some of the things you saw now, but did you see like MySpace and be like, man, that could be so much better, or Facebook, and well, that could be so much better? Like, where did that specific vision for CREADO come that you guys have started to build on already? And you're muted, just so you know.
Can you hear me?
Now
For some reason my earbuds dropped out. Speaking of technology, if you got me, you good?
Yeah, you're good. You're solid.
So I'm just using computer audio. I'll try and go back when we cut to something. the when we first started looking at this, we were looking at, hey, how do we build a conservative version of what the left is in control of in Hollywood, right? But, and this is when I got together with my producer buddy Nick Searcy. We sat down, we're like, how do we build something that basically conservative investors and or donors, or just conservatives of a whole, have completely ignored for the better part of 20 years. And this this really goes into why you're not seeing any great films about America over the last 20 years, outside of maybe Top Gun, Passion of the Christ, those are like very successful films, yet they're few and far between. So there's always been an issue with getting conservative leaning people to understand the value of culture, and how really content and films and entertainment really go a long way to doing what a Fox News broadcast or whatever, insert whatever you want there. So when we first identified this, it was like, okay, do we do the conservative studio or do we do the conservative only? And really, when I started raising capital, that was it. It was like conservative only, or, we got to like combat this with that. Where it's evolved over the last, 3 to 4 years is, yes, we can have conservative principles and values, but really to change culture and to really see, information changing, that's really needs to be in the hands, the eye of the beholder, right? It should be up to the audiences to decide whether a film is good, or a piece of music, or a comedian, or whatever the entertainment model is. We have to kind of put that in the hands of the consumer. But for the last 20 years, there's been no control, both on the artist side and the consumer side. So we initially started with that in mind, studio with distribution, kind of like our own Netflix. But then, James R., who's a friend of the podcast, when I started talking to him about, because I knew what was going on in entertainment, music, film, comedy, it's all the same, right? It's no matter the medium. And I wasn't as much into podcasting, but he's like, same things are happening in podcasting. So we had to start to kind of evolve a little bit, which has kind of taken, it's part of the reason why it maybe people perceive this as taking so long, is that we had to find the right recipe that wouldn't alienate anybody, and it really would kind of be able to remove the gatekeepers and the corporate control out of the whole entertainment industry. Because I consider podcast entertainment, right? It's not just music and film. We can talk about that more inclusively or exclusively, but a lot of this process has been constantly evolving to figure out the right recipe, that we build the technology and give artists the tools and consumers the tools, and just get out of the way, right? We realized that building it around a social media backbone, where we can bring all those tools and we can talk about the silos and all that stuff, but we had to be able to bring this into one platform that an artist could basically say, finally, right? All my accounting is here. I can just create and distribute directly to my audience. I have social audio chats. I've got everything integrated. There's events and communities and a huge marketplace. We'll get into the flush of that, but we just had to take the pain points that everybody was really experiencing and put it into a basic, what we call an MVP, which is kind of like the prototype for what the product will be. The problem is trying to put 10 pounds of poop in a 5-pound bag, right? There's so many problems.
Well, speaking of problems, because that kind of leads into my next question, which you've kind of touched on a little bit. What are, like, if you had to highlight some of the biggest breakthroughs, but also some of the biggest obstacles you guys have had from bringing CREADO from concept to an actual, working model, what would that be? And I just want to let the audience know, I've had the privilege of having to, what would you call that? Beta testing, or
the demo?
Yeah, the demo.
It's the demo.
To sample the demo of what CREADO is going to look like. I was like, holy shit, this is so cool.
I just want to, is my audio still good?
Yeah, you're still solid.
Good. Just want to make sure, me as a producer, of course, audio. So it's been a wide array of things that have come up. Obviously, early on, we thought we could, kind of be the technology lead as well. This was before Rumble. It was, when we were conceptualizing this was before Parler, when we were first looking at this, right? So, and as you're seeing, really, there's still technology issues out there that people are not addressing it. Rumble's done it a little bit, but I don't know how much I kind of trust the powers that be there still. But the biggest issue really was we were trying to do too much too early and requiring too much funding to, instead of taking, and this is a big, with any startup founder, you have to learn, you have to understand and evolve as a founder. We were trying to raise 30 million to do a big conglomerate of things. Now we can build this product for under 5, right? So we completely had to go back to the budget and go, yeah, that's a great idea, but that'll come year 3, right? So to answer the question directly is we had to isolate and figure out what are the pain points that artists are, really experiencing the most, and how do we build a product that phase 1 will address 3 or 4 or 5 of those, have the streaming capability, allowing them to monetize and control their channels, build communities, and have that marketplace that they can immediately start to have 3, 4, 5 different outlets for revenue. So that's been, it's been a main part of the last 6 to 7 months is kind of shrinking down that ask from investors. And then, it also opens us up to different investors, right? Because I mentioned we were doing conservative, all conservative all the time. But, and the other issue too is that we've fended off venture capital money and dark money and Wall Street money, because ultimately, I know it would have been a quick fix and, we would have got the funding. If we were in this for the money, right? Yeah, we would have been funded and probably would have been sold off by now. But the mission itself is so important that we can ensure that artists not only protect their intellectual property and have the freedom to create what they want, right? I mean, we're not a gatekeeper. That's the first and foremost. We're removing that element, but artists should be in control of their own finances and their own earnings and have a transparent accounting background that they know that broadcast got to X amount of people and 70% were female, 30% were male, and they, 90%. Yeah.
Let me pause you there, J-Man, because I have a specific area where I want to get into, how you guys are putting the control back in the hands of the artist. And for the audience that's listening, that's like, well, I'm not an artist, Alpha. Trust me, we're also going to be talking about a little bit later the consumer experience, and I'm telling you, it's going to rock your socks when we get to that. Where I do want to take us right now to kind of reiterate the importance of where we're going to get with the artist control and the consumer experience is this, the control in the entertainment industry that's going on right now. So I'm going to play a clip. This is a little bit longer than I normally play, but it's a compilation of things that are real. It's not, this ain't Jason's opinion. This ain't Alpha's opinion. These are things that really happen. We're out in the media. And I think because we've been so overwhelmed with all this craziness that's happening in the world, that these things, which are really extreme, like when you watch this clip, you guys, it's just short of 3.5 minutes. When you watch this, you're like, damn, how did I forget about that? Like, that's really important. So I'm going to play this 3.5 minute clip. And then when we come back, I want to cover, how CREADO can address this and your thoughts. So let's put this clip on for everybody.
And I think that the dangerous, edges here are that he's trying to undermine the media, trying to make up his own facts. He could have undermined the messaging so much that he can actually control exactly what people think, and that is our job.
When talking about this, it's it's kind of funny. Oh, Elon Musk wants to buy it, but there are massive life and globe altering consequences for just letting people run wild on the thing.
Elon Musk is saying Twitter needs to be transformed. Make no mistake, this is a hostile takeover bid rattling Silicon Valley.
I think it's important to note that Elon doesn't just think that dangerous speech is like whatever on Twitter. In real life, he has allowed dangerous speech like racist speech, violent speech to fester at his factories.
He, radicalizes it and brings back Trump or does other things that he's talked about doing, and half the audience leaves, then it's just going to be an echo chamber and he's going to be the king of nothing.
It's going to be like Parler or Rumble or one of those right-wing alternatives.
I mean, I'm going to be honest. Elon Musk is a danger to Twitter and to freedom of speech. So creating an arena for hate, to me, that's what that sounds like, an opportunity for him to have no consequences, to have no flags, for people just to be able to do whatever it is and say whatever they want, with regardless of what kind of harm that it causes.
My strong intuitive sense is that having a public platform that is maximally trusted and broadly inclusive is extremely important to the future of civilization.
But you've described yourself.
I don't care about the economics at all. We want to be just very reluctant to delete things and have just be very cautious with permanent bans. A good sign as to whether there is free speech is someone you don't like allowed to say something you don't like. And if that is the case, then we have free speech. And it's damn annoying when someone you don't like says something you don't like. That is a sign of a healthy, functioning, free speech situation.
And so free speech on Twitter matters. And last month, Elon Musk gave the impression that he planned to do something about it, that he planned to open up Twitter. He bought 10% of the company. Now, today, Musk has just put in an offer to buy 100% of Twitter.
You tweet a lot.
I use my tweets to express myself. Some people use their hair. I use Twitter.
Well, but you use your tweeting to kind of get back at critics.
Rarely.
You kind of have little wars with the press.
Twitter is a war zone. If somebody's going to jump in the war zone, it's like, okay, you're in the arena. Let's go.
And so I show that to remind everybody this control in the entertainment industry, and the fascinating part to me, even though it's terrible, is, obviously this was highlighting more of a focal point to Twitter, but Twitter to me is still like the bottom, like scraping for crumbs, J-Man. Like, we don't have free speech. Like, as much as everybody praises Elon, and I have my own opinion of that, it's still just the crumbs of what freedom in the entertainment industry really looks like. And even then you see this, the big tech and the media and some would argue the government, control of this. And you had kind of mentioned earlier the control that Hollywood has on, or the grip that it has on conservative media. So without going too much into the controversial stuff, if you can just kind of shed some light on how this control impacts the artists and the creativity of the freedom. Because the one thing that I've learned, again, with much credit to you and James, is that creative freedom and how important it is for my audience, the people that are spending time with us tonight, to truly see what I'm going to bring. But it's like there's this chokehold on it, man. What do you say to that?
Well, I think you coined the term early on, self-censoring, right? So the same people that control Hollywood, same people that control the media, the same people control our country are the same people. It's the same actual factions, and it's the same funding mechanisms. It's the same, whether the technology, backdoors, and all that. You look at the Twitter files, what that exposed. That exposed stuff that we had already known was going on 5, 6, 7 years ago. So I hate to use the term slave system, but it really is, right? So, when you're not and I don't want to bring up slavery, but when you're not a free person and you cannot freely express what's on your heart and what you're thinking and believing, and you cannot associate or deliver that content or whatever the creative is to that audience that you align with, it's not creating echo chamber. See, that actually, that's what the iterations of Truth Social, Getter, that did create an echo chamber, right? So, but we shouldn't be placed in silos just to get to have our speech be heard. So Elon is trying, right? But that Twitter X is a text messaging platform. It's not a content delivery platform. So they're trying, you got subscriptions but there's really there's basic communities, but there's no like coalescing your entire audience into your own arena, right? And that is controlled by you and the audience, right? So there's so many disconnects. And I mean, I get into a little bit about anybody that's a musician or a filmmaker in the audience, probably understands that, sites like Spotify. If you want me to go into that now, I mean, I can just briefly touch on that. Platforms like Spotify, Tidal, Apple Music, right? Artists and everybody always, even investors say, well, I don't care what the artists make; they're all rich and famous. But it's not that way. Artists make on average 0.003 cents per stream.
And
so that means
and Jay, man, just to interrupt there, because me and my buddy Tobin, you guys, if he's in the chat, throw him a thumbs up. He's a solid dude. He's a canine handler. We were talking about that very thing. That one of the biggest revelations that you gave me was when I realized, what? Like this fraction. So then it's just like, well, now I know why if you want to go to an event, the thing's like $400 a ticket. And it's just because everybody is just robbing the actual artists of this. And I know we'll get there, especially when we talk about the consumer experience, but being able to put the actual value of what the artist's content is into their pocket, actually what I see is will reduce the cost to get that content by having this kind of platform. If you can kind of touch on, because we will cover that, if you can kind of add, because you were kind of touching on it right now, and I want to make sure we don't fly over it because it's important to me. How does this this control that they have on this freedom of entertainment, how does that affect the actual quality of content that's out there, and then the distribution of that content? And I'll give it back to you.
Yeah, I mean, it's the gatekeepers and the corporations, right? They created the system that everybody has to play under, right? And it's very anti-capitalistic, right? So when everything switched from hard merch, like we grew up on records, tapes, and CDs, right? We had the liner notes, right? We could get to know about your favorite artists, right? Now, remember the experience that it was getting paid on a Friday night, go cash your check, and you had we're in California, so we had Tower Records and Warehouse and Sam Goody, right? That was like an experience. Like the bros got you were connected to your favorite artist. And then back then, artists were getting a lot bigger cut of album sales. But to touch on what you were saying is artists only make money from touring or merchandise, right? Streaming, and let me finish that thought about that 0.003 cents. So a musician that distributes a song on Spotify that gets 1 million plays pays that artist $3,000. $3,000 for 1 million streams, and the label takes 80% of that. All right, can we circle back to the Spotify point? I did send you a Joe Rogan interview with Billy Corgan from the Smashing Pumpkins. If you could pull that up, he kind of explains, the current status of the industry, and it kind of ties into that slave system that I kind of mentioned. If you pull that up, and then we can come back and discuss further.
All right, here we go. Let me bring it up.
As I once was, but one thing they do with certain younger artists, but I think particularly more in the pop realm, is they do these 360 deals where it's like, if you get a perfume deal, if you like your whole world,
they own you.
We own a piece of your whole world. And fame is such a great quotient in American life now that you can see where kids would trade fame and be willing to give away like the profit part.
Well, they'll take a risk at the long-term ownership.
Right. So let me jump in there. So if you actually survive the cut, let's call it phase one. You're successful, you're a name, and now you're in a place to either renegotiate or your deal is up or whatever. I once had a conversation with a very powerful music executive, and I said, and I was friends with the guy, so I was like, give me the insider psychology here. Now that I know the game that you run, what do you tell people like me when they get here? And he says, oh, it's just, there's always a price. So they know that even if you get through the matrix of the whole thing and get out the other side, that there's just a dollar amount that will buy you back in.
Whoa.
They're not worried that you'll go independent. And in fact, if you look at a lot of the machinations of the music business over the last 20 years, especially with the rise of the internet, it's to keep people in the system.
Yes.
They don't want true independence.
Right, but it
Look,
seems
no,
like...
look, I'll give you, look no further than the deals that the record labels cut with the streaming services. They got into ownership equity deals with the streaming services. In an arrangement for them to have an equity position, they agreed to very low rates for the artist's music.
Oh, so that's
so when
why.
when you listen to Bob Dylan's song on Spotify, Bob Dylan's not getting a lot of money for that. But as Spotify and the other streaming services raise up in their equity position, the labels benefit. So the labels pimped out their own artist to take a greater equity position in a rising business. It's like, you see what I'm saying?
Freaking.
There you go.
Wow.
Yeah, and it's...
Wow.
We talked about the slave system, right? Billy mentions the system, right? So the system has always been designed to reward the studios and the corporations, not the artists, right? So he just says right there, and that's Spotify in a nutshell. It's not as, I mean, Apple's got its own set of problems, Tidal's got its own set of problems, but one other thing about Spotify is they were caught, and this happens a lot with their top 20 lists, they were caught on the jazz section. There was a longtime jazz historian and writer, Ted Gioia, who's, if you're not following him on Twitter, he's got some great content, Gioia. He uncovered, as a jazz guy, he went to the top 20 playlist on Spotify and didn't recognize 15 of the 20 artists that were on the platform. And so he dug a little bit deeper and realized they were all from Sweden. Well, where Spotify founded in Sweden. So he realized that they went in and paid studio musicians to cut these tracks with no royalties going out, just to infuse and inflate their top 20 list so that the company could make more money, right? Pushing labeled artists and artists that may have been trending. So they not only can kind of manufacture and manipulate these top 20 lists, but they can basically, it's kind of like our elections, right? It's like they can manipulate the numbers the way they want, and they're never held accountable for, because the artists don't get to see the back end. They really don't get the true analytics and metrics, which kind of, leads us to our, the next stage here, which is talking about, the importance of, how we got here. Not necessarily how we fix it, but we'll talk about that in a minute. But he mentioned the system, right? You want to keep everybody in the system. And that means they want to have control over every facet. They mentioned the 360 deals. Yes, that's what they're trying to do now. But the biggest, if we had to look at what, the biggest issue in the industry is the disconnect between streaming and fan interaction. So, as a podcaster, you got to broadcast on 8 to 10 platforms. How many hours does that waste every night just updating, the liner notes or I got to go back and put all the links in there and everything. And then you got to jump over to X or Instagram, right? Just to connect with your fans, right? It is designed that way so that they can control not only the output of the content, but how you connect with your fans. Because God forbid, as Billy said, you go independent and have freedom, right? You're going to take all the earnings away from them, because there's more money in fan interaction than there is obviously in the streaming side. And we talked about it earlier about artists having to travel, tour, and sell merch just to make a living. That's kind of like, it is, again, it's designed to reward the studios and the corporations, not the artists, which, we'll get to in the next segment, talking about the future and why we're doing what we're doing.
To touch on that and just listening to the conversation, that they have, and how this game is played out. And you did touch it, and I know firsthand how frustrating it is. One platform, I mean, it's simple things, but people don't understand that when you add a bunch of simple things together, that's a lot of time, and it's like, I got to, the aesthetics, it's there's marketing involved in this, and it's crazy because all I'm trying to do is get the truth out. I'm trying to bring to the people what is buried under 6 feet of just, media bullshit, right? And in order to get there, it means, well, I got to create a thumbnail that's aesthetically pleasing. It's going to catch someone's eye, Hate to use the word clickbait. I like to think of more of like get your attention, right? But at the same time, not all the platforms will accept that thumbnail that I created for Rumble. So now I got to change. I got to go and spend times, reconfigure, the sizing of it, do this. And then, you got to create a show description so people know, hey, what's this about? But then this platform over here only gives you, 800 words versus, and so now you're spending time like, well, okay, well, all this was important, because Rumble's my primary one right now. Okay, well, what from this do I gotta eliminate? And here comes the content creator's frustration. Well, it's all important. That's why I have it there. But now it's like I gotta go and start cutting away flesh to what I feel is important for this platform. And before people understand it, before this podcast ever even hits the airwaves of the listener, I've probably spent anywhere from 2 to 4 hours just on like the positioning the artists or the artwork and the description of stuff. That doesn't even include and this is why I want a single source platform. Copyright. This is thanks to J-Man and thanks to James. I'm trying to do this the professional way now, so I'm not trying to undo bad habits later. Is I'm using programs where I got to buy the copyright for this one. I got to buy the copyright for that one. But they say you can only have 2 platforms, but I'm streaming to 8 different platforms. So now I got to upgrade to something, which is, the shit is not cheap. Like, it's expensive, J-Man,
it's like costing you at least $500 a month or more.
It's surpassed.
Well, no, I'm like StreamYard or whatever. I mean,
well, I'll say this: if just for someone, don't hold my feet to the fire here. These are estimates because, like I said, we're talking about nearly 3 years ago. Just following your guys' direction to get started the right way, you were looking at around $400 to $500 a month just to do it the right way in the beginning. But as you start to broaden the platforms, as you start to increase the content, it starts going up more and more and more and more. And then you do got to bring in certain people, like with StreamYard, they got their basic plan. They even got the professional plan. And all of a sudden, something that was $20 moves to $60, moves to $80, moves to $120. And you have to do it the right way. There's a cost to bringing the truth out there. And because, like you said, everybody's getting their hands in it, it becomes very frustrating, but you have to compete. You have to compete. And listening to, Billy and Rogan talking about it, it's just like, damn, I feel that. And once again, so the audience is like, yeah, I hear it. And I empathize for you, Alpha. I feel you, J-Man. But, I'm just the listener. Well, this is the point where, and this actually sets us up for a perfect segue into, going into where CREADO is going to change the world of this, is because the frustrations I'm talking about affects the content that I can bring to my audience. And I'll explain how, but I guess the perfect way to set this up is to play that Prince video. And
this was in 2014, by the way, 2 years before he passed or was killed, or whatever you believe in that. I believe in the latter, but he's explaining. So this is 4 or 5 years into streaming, right? So if you ever wonder why Prince changed his name from Prince to a symbol, kind of explains why. And it ties into what Billy was saying, right? They own you and they own everything about you. So it's going to roll back into why artistic freedom and consumer freedom is very important.
And I have a perfect comment when we come back from this clip. This is Prince. This is over 10 years ago, you guys. Right around 10 years ago. Here we go.
You seem to have somewhat of a love-hate battle going on with technology. I know you haven't always loved the internet. How are you seeing progress right now with all of that? Can you use it to your advantage?
It's a double-edged sword. You know, a lot of artists aren't getting paid full scale for their art, and the internet, because of downloading and things like that, is kind of like a black hole, and it's hard to audit, it's hard to get accounting, and it's not that it's just about the money, but it's about justice and fairness. And when people say that they love you and they respect you, but at the same time take, 80% of your earnings, then expect you to fix your own communities, and they'll probably edit all of this out, but then it gets, that's the sharp part of the sword, and we're at the wrong end of it right now. So eventually, with courageous people going out there and actually saying something and standing up for it, I think we'll get some balance.
Just to comment to that real quick, J-Man. One, what a damn legend. I miss that guy. Gosh, if we still... Can you just imagine? Yeah, could you imagine the music that he would have right now? Just there's certain artists I miss, and Prince is definitely one of those. One of the things that he says, though, in that clip is, it's hard to audit the internet, this black hole. And now that my podcast has picked up traction and got a good size audience behind it, in the beginning, I was finding these other, channels that were putting out my podcast. Not because I tell people all the time, like, if there's some information, clip it and share it. Like, I'm good with that. But I'm talking, they weren't clipping it. It was literally a download of my podcast and an upload to their channel, like the whole thing, with zero credit of, hey, for more of this, I would at least appreciate that. But no reference, even changing the title and all this. And so, I was trying to keep track of this, but there's so much of it that's happening. It's like, I got to the point, J-Man, where it's like, the time I'm investing to try to audit the people that are copyrighting my stuff, I just don't have the time for it. On top of that, I have a very loving, loyal audience. So from time to time, they're like, hey man, I found this, and they'll send me the link. So they save me the search time so I can address it. But it's one of those things where it's frustrating because my audience is my family. These are patriots. I mean, we have people that watch from Australia, bro, like Aussies. Like, I think they're like in the next day, like they're in the future, right?
Sure.
When they're watching these shows.
17 hours, yeah.
Yeah. And so it's, to know that I've earned the trust and loyalty of my audience, and there's more that I want to bring to them. And this is why I'm going to turn it back to you to add, how does CREADO change the game? How are they going to empower the artists, the content creators, and then ultimately the consumers? But let's start off on the artists. How's CREADO changing the game?
So as Prince said in there, he talks about the system, and Billy talked about the system, and just reiterating, it really goes back to the control mechanism. So CREADO, first and foremost, is going to get, I said it earlier, get out of the way and facilitate the tools and the technology for you guys. And let me clarify what we view an artist as. An artist is a film. Anybody that's creating their own original content, to us, is an artist, right? Because it is entertainment. It is delivering original content to your audience. So how we're going to fix this is we're going to, all the other platforms have that firewall between artist and consumer. We talked about the silos. You got to stream over here, then go to social just to connect. Even though you're not really connecting, fans can comment on social or interact amongst themselves, but there's really no direct one-on-one. You just said your audience is your family. So if we kind of think about all the good things that social media does and all the good things that streaming does, CREADO is going to fuse them into one platform. So now it's going to take a while to build up, right? And build up the audiences, right? This is why we're focusing on music and podcasts early on, because that's the low-hanging fruit. Filmmakers and comedians. Films is a longer process, right? So, and plus on our platform, filmmakers are going to want to see a higher audience, potential audience before. Same with advertisers, right? So the the concept that we've created is built on a social media, platform and interface, right? So it'll be very familiar with the other platforms that you guys are on. However, it is designed in a way where it utilizes. So you were talking about advertising and the marketing of things. So imagine if like Netflix had a way for you to share a film with somebody, or interact while watching, or your favorite, Breaking Bad. There's like legends of like millions of people, or thousands of people that will get together for watch parties, right? The reason none of that is available right now is because the system controls everything. They don't want you, again, directly connecting with your fans. So ultimately, to answer the question, is CREADO is going to be that conduit that brings all of an artist's content and interaction, and then freeing them to not only increase their earning potential, but also build communities of loyal paid fans that are directly engaged. It's, the reason you can't grow an audience when you've got 8 different fan bases on 8 different streaming platforms, they're disconnected from each other, right? You may get some overlap. There may be some people on Rumble that will watch it on X Spaces or X broadcast, but it goes back to what we were saying earlier about how we grew up, right? Having that connection one-on-one with our favorite artists. Yeah, sure, it was the records and tapes and CDs and liner notes like we talked about, but we need to make this an experience again, right? And not an experience that's governed by the gatekeepers and the corporations who only allow you to see or distribute what they are approving you to see. But again, it's all about the audiences deciding. If your content is bad, nobody's going to follow your channel, right? And I think the system will weed itself out. And so to answer your question, CREADO is, again, just facilitating the tools and technologies for others to thrive, right? So, our system, Rumble does a good job of paying creators, right? But there's very few revenue streams that an artist could do. So the features and benefits of what we're doing, on top of protecting IP and eliminating the gatekeepers, so there is no cancel culture, right? I mean, artists are going to control the terms of service on their own channels. So if you decide you don't want to talk about politics or religion, whatever, that's up to the artist, right? And it's governed by the artist, right? So all the other platforms are top-down governance, right? That's not freedom. So until these artists are free, think about the content you could do if you woke up in the morning and didn't have to self-censor yourself, and be able to really just open and broaden the spectrum and get into topics and things that your audience really needs and wants to hear. That's what CREADO is going to be. Now, inside of all that, we have a fusion of social audio in there, kind of like Twitter Spaces, but we're gonna simplify the process so that your podcast can be, because Twitter Spaces still has problems because it's built on Periscope's old technology, and unless they rebuild X completely into a new platform model, none of that's ever going to work correctly. So imagine if your streaming distribution and your broadcast can be delivered with the audience right there. It's kind of like old radio was, where you had people call into the show. There's pieces of that available right now, but oftentimes it comes with a 7-second delay, right? You figured the workaround there, but the direct connection with the fans is one of the successful ways in which radio thrived back in the day, because you could be talking, have a guest on, and then we got Bill from Long Island calling in as a question for Bob Dylan, whatever it may be. That's all been gatekept this whole time. So again, I can't express the importance about just removing the gatekeepers and let artists be artists and let fans be fans. Let the fans decide. And what that's going to really do, if the artist knows that they can come and get 70-80% of just subscriptions to their channels, make money. If it's a musician, they could sell downloads, hard merch, CDs, DVDs. But even more importantly, and this should be in the phase 1, but it may come into phase 1.1. our marketplace is going to be a place where artists can sell concert tickets or create events around their communities, right? Live stream events. The first time we chatted, I talked about, a musician. Yeah, they could do live stream concerts, but why can't they live stream to their VIP audience on a Friday night when they don't have a gig and go, hey, we just wrote a new song. What do you guys think? Right? Reconnecting fans with their favorite artist. I mean, there's been statistics taken. I think livestream.com did a stat that said 45% of consumers would be willing to pay a premium, for direct access to their favorite artist, group, or speaker, right? I mean, so why don't we give them that? Why is nobody else giving them that options, right? And then we can roll all those cool things like Cameo. Remember Cameo that went from $1 billion company down to zero? It's like, somebody wants to pay you $100 to say happy birthday to their dad or whatever. I mean, that should be all built in, right? You should have revenue streams and they shouldn't be gate kept, and on the download side, we're going to have, much better. Like, I don't know if the audience realizes, but a musician, a purchase download, they get about 10 cents on the dollar, right? Apple gets 40%, the label gets 50%, right? So it is really, what we're creating is a new way of doing things, and a new ecosystem, so to speak, so that you can, and even on the consumer side, right? I mean, everybody's like, well, why are you going to build it this way? Why are you going to do that, right? So 5 years ago, we came up with the idea that charging a tiny monthly fee for social media gets rid of bots and trolls. I mean, even on X, it's still prevalent. There's millions of, pics in my bio, right? Or, whatever it may be, right? It's like, I think if we can create a cleaner social community environment, and that's centered around entertainment, and use that as an escape from their daily lives, from politics, from everything else that's going on, I think our culture will start to shift, and it will start to, you mentioned about good creative content that the audience wants to see. I think the audience is going to infuse your brand and tell you, hey, man, we're free now. Let's, go do, your on the border guy, the border segments or whatever it may be. And you can get out in the field because they're monetizing you, right? And a lot of guys can't, or gals can't expand from their current reach because they've built a little box for themselves. But, I mean, imagine a world where 40,000 subscribers would pay you 35 grand a month. What could you do with that, that kind of earnings and income that doesn't even require advertising to support that? And that's
you could create your own documentaries, your own movies. You could do events for your audience, and that's,
you can do Kickstarters in your own community, right? Hey, I want to go out and shoot a documentary. I'm raising $5 grand. Here's the portal inside your channel, right? Help me fund $5 grand to go shoot this documentary.
And the cool, and I'm glad you went there, because this is the part of the consumer experience I want them to realize, and we're going to get into it as when we start to wrap things up, why support CREADO. This is why, like, you're touching on it right now, is, we're doing a virtual show right now. But if my podcast, if my media company was to the point where it's doing $20,000-$30,000 a month, I mean, that's a lot of money. But you could actually have a full-blown studio. I could start flying in guests, the way we see some of these Joe Rogans and Timcast. You could do that. And what does that do? That improves the quality of the content. We can do special episodes where, if I'm doing a show on the beaches of Normandy, we can actually take the production team out there and do it. So this brings quality content to the audience. And I'm glad you mentioned the bots and trolls. Bots and trolls destroy the experience two ways. From the consumer aspect, the way I see it, you have to filter through all the trash, right? From the content creator perspective, where bots and trolls are devastating is they ruin the algorithms. With proper analytics, I get to see, okay, my audience really enjoyed this content. Look at how many people watch this, beginning to end, it's spiked at this point. It allows me to pinpoint what my audience loves. And then I can build around that and be like, okay, I can adjust this, or, what, this was really important to me, because my audience is not going to dictate completely what I do, but I can say, hey, how can I re-deliver that message, but do it in a way where my audience will like it? And I get to recreate information that was important to me. With bots and trolls, you can't do that because nothing's real. There's no analytics that are real. Everything's polluted. And people just don't understand. It's by design. Like, it's designed this way. And so I'll give it back to you if you want to wrap up your thoughts.
And that's why YouTube is set up the way it is with Google AdWords, right? There's zero transparency. You get some analytics. You get to see, who watched the broadcast for how long, a basic demographic, right? But if we've talked about it earlier, but you just said it again, right? If you know what is peaking with your audience and what trigger points, that's the whole evolution of content delivery, right? So again, we talked about if your content's horse crap, nobody's going to watch it. Nobody's going to subscribe to your channel, which let me wrap that whole social thing. So the way CREADO works is it's a small monthly for the social media side, right? And then you're going to get all those protections. You're going to get to control your own algorithm, right? Curate your own content, right? You don't want to see things. Most of the audience is political, right? But if you don't want to see things from certain artists, you can filter that out, right? You have different it's filter controls, but it really ties into the algorithm. Like, you just want to see things from your family. Fine. Social media used to be that way, where you curated your communities the way you want, but then everything went political, and you're now forced to see things. Go ahead.
Let me pause you there, because you set me up perfectly. I was wanting to include this video. It's 90 seconds. It's important to me. In what you just said, social media used to be that way. I want to show a quick clip, you guys. It'll be the last clip that from the videos, because what social media used to be and what it is now is different. And this video shows what it is now.
Twitter's former leadership is facing accusations of censorship after a second batch of internal files was released to the public. The files allegedly show the company limited the visibility of some tweets and accounts.
Are you censoring people?
No.
Twitter shadow banning prominent Republicans. It's bad. Is that true?
No.
Now, that may not have been true. Journalist Barry Weiss releasing another batch of Twitter files Thursday. Files that allegedly show the company secretly limited the visibility of certain tweets and user accounts. Many of those accounts reportedly leaned conservative.
It's nothing shocking. Everybody knew it was happening. The fact that people were denying it, it was just blatant lies.
According to Weiss, censorship also impacted a Stanford University doctor who was a vocal opponent of COVID lockdowns. Weiss says he was secretly put on a Trends blacklist, which prevented his tweets from trending.
It's a complete denial of our First Amendment and free speech.
Weiss also revealing content moderation was led by a secret group that included former CEO Jack Dorsey and former head of legal policy and trust Vijaya Gadde. Weiss's findings have now sparked calls by Republican lawmakers for a deeper investigation into tech data.
We need to investigate this, go deeper into it, not just Twitter, Facebook, Google, even Wikipedia.
Overnight, Musk announced he was working on software that would tell users if their accounts were shadow banned, with the reason why and how to appeal it. He did not say when that would roll out.
The lies, J-Man. We have people on X right now paying over $20 a month, the consumers, because this is where I want us to bring home the consumer thing. You have people, not content creators, or the artists, this is the regular everyday consumer that's paying over $20 a month on X, or some that are doing, the $12 a month because they still want to be able to put a longer, form post out there, and they're being censored. They revamp the way they take us down, or our message to, like, okay, we can't remove them because that's obvious now. But, and Elon said, freedom of speech is not freedom of reach, but yeah, you're paying for that reach.
Yeah. False advertising. It's so funny because I mentioned earlier, 5 years ago, we're like, well, how are we going to get people to pay $2.99? I know it's the right way to to get rid of the bots and trolls. But God, and then Elon comes out. Well, MeWe's like $4.99 a month. They have certain levels there, which I don't even know if MeWe is still alive or not. But that was another social platform that came out. But now that we're seeing, just everyday people paying $8.99 on, I think it's $8.99 on desktop, $11.99 on mobile, because Apple's got to get their 30% cut, and same with Samsung or the App Store. Yeah, I mean, this is a lot of thought has gone into why we're building things the way we are, because we were able to see the patterns. And why should you have to pay to be censored? The big issue, and I mentioned this before, as soon as he got rid of the legacy blue check marks, it muddied the whole audience. It muddied the whole platform, because now anybody can pay to have what used to be the trusted source badge of a blue check, right? So I don't want to go too deeply into that, but there's a psychology behind everything, right? And when Elon took over, they had a $2 billion annual nut to cover. So they were losing and hemorrhaging so much cash flow, he had to introduce new ways to monetize. And then under the guise of, hey, you're able to speak freely now. You're not getting reach, but hey, sign up for my $8.99 or $11.99 a month, and we'll give you a tiny bit more. It's like, remember the meme that United Spot did with James and us, and that but I want more. I want more. Well, pay us the money. I want more. It was not Tom Thumb or whatever the skit was, or little Timmy, whatever. This is how the game works, right? So every industry is set up so that the platform increases their revenues, right? So yeah, Twitter's getting $19.99 a month. And by the way, do you know that the average person getting monetized on Twitter is $300 a month? That's it, right? You get your guys like Ian Miles Chong and little puppets for Elon that are making big money promoting him, right? I mean, the guys promoting Elon, like the Doge guy, and they're all getting big time money. But it's kind of like how's that different from a pay to play, right? You kiss my ass and I'll give you a bigger cut of the share. That's no different than the existing system, right? It's I mean, but ultimately to get back to what we were talking about, fixing this removes the control mechanisms that are in the way and let entertainment and art, and art was always designed to be to the interpretation of the person viewing it, right? That's where we need to get back to, right? So when artists again can be free, amazing things will happen. And honestly, everybody's so focused on politics to fix our culture. Politics used to be downstream from culture, as Breitbart used to say. However, all the money is going into politics and $0 are going into culture. So and then we could talk about that in our next segment about, what we're doing to raise additional funds, and I can get into how that's been frustrating because of these things. But,
one thing
oh, good.
I was to say, one thing to say to what you're saying is, if I look at the analytics, from my X account, and we'll just do the I'll do the year one, and granted, I'm not bragging about these numbers, because I know there's accounts with much bigger numbers out there, but I will also say that these are numbers that were accomplished with full throttle censorship.
Mm-hmm.
But you're looking at just over 23 million impressions. You're looking at 43,000 new followers, in the vicinity of almost 500,000 likes, over 1 million video views, over 1 million media views, over 100,000 reposts, over 40,000 replies, an engagement rate that's, above 5%, which is definitely above the average, because I did research that the average engagement percent is like 1 point something. Right. So, and those kind of numbers, for I would consider myself a smaller, medium size account on X. And you're right. I average somewhere between $200 and $300 a month from X, which is nothing when you look at the time invested to put content on there, which takes me back to, if we rewind a little bit, and I'm putting these numbers out there because I've always, me, I've always been transparent because, everybody else is just lying about all this shit. Right. When you look at Rumble, And if you were to take the numbers we have on Rumble and apply those numbers to YouTube, because I've talked to people who are on YouTube that haven't been deplatformed, they've been playing the game, and they're just, granted, and I'll give my own opinion of why I think it's unfolding this way. But if my channel was doing what it's doing on Rumble on YouTube, I'd be making $20,000 a month. That's where it would be. But it ain't that. It's not even remotely close to that.
No.
It's not even like 0.5% of that. It's embarrassing when you look at we're really getting breadcrumbs. However, Rumble doesn't have a competitor, and they know they don't have a competitor that's going to allow our kind of content to go out there. So you're kind of like, well, there's nowhere else to go. And so there's that handcuffing of the content creators. But here's something that I don't think, and to wrap up the consumer part as we get into the last segment here, and I wrote this question down because it's so important, and I have it titled Big Tech and Data Privacy. Big Tech is notorious for data mining and privacy invasions. What's your take on the current state of data privacy in this industry, and how's CREADO positioned itself against these tech giants with that? Because what I just told you is what they're doing to me from the content creator side. People don't understand this is also happening to you on the consumer side, and I'll give that question to you now, G-Man.
Yeah, and how many consumers know that their data is being sold for, on average, it's been a year or so. How many know that your data is being monetized to the tune of about $3,300 a year per person, right? Wouldn't you like to have that income? Why don't you get that income, right? And it goes back to the whole basis for how CREADO, or how streaming and social media was created, right? So that it was created on the advertising model, right? So by not charging for social, not charging for content like YouTube started. And by the way, YouTube pays 0.5% per view in advertiser revenue to the creator. Now, you get to a certain level and, no strikes, you can get more, maybe, as you're saying, Alpha, but ultimately the system is set up to reward the studio. So how to and reiterate the last part of your question. Sorry about that.
Yeah. So the last part of the question is, how is CREADO positioning itself against these big tech giants that are doing these data mining?
So our model is not relying on advertising. Okay. So what that means is, and by charging, say it's $1.99 or $2.99 a month with a deal for paying, for the year, we're not even going to collect. We're going to collect what's called smart data for use in the algorithms, which you're going to have the input on. Like, for example, you launch your account. I'm interested in rock music, country music, whatever. I like these type of films, I like these type of podcasts. That's smart data. And then we can use the whatever you're setting up on your timeline as far as what you want to see. We can utilize that and then have a system set up to where, we're not spamming people in their feed with, the Alpha Warrior Show, but it really sets up the, with that smart data to kind of go, okay, to set that you may also like type of content up, and then, band of the month or what have you, podcast of the month. So there's ways to do that I'm going to speak about the creator side, right? There's ways to utilize the social media, which, this is why we talked about the importance of bringing the silos together, right? You've got and I'm not going to get off topic here, but you got to broadcast on Rumble and the others. Then you got to go to Twitter just to post it, and the graphic you talked about, right? So imagine that comes into one platform where you can use your timeline, right, for free to put your content. It's all in the same encompassing system. So back to the data mining, privacy is also a huge problem. People don't understand that, their data is being, sold for $3,300 average per year, but all the metrics behind that are also being mined and sold. And the government's the largest purchaser of data, folks. And, so if they're not colluding through Twitter, Facebook, what have you, the government is purchasing all of these 300 to 400 points of metrics on you, right? So we're not going to do that, right? This is about freedom. And the only way to protect consumers, going back to consumers, is in that, say it's $2.99 a month, right? You're not going to have your data mined because I don't need your data to go sell to advertisers just to make a buck on the platform. So the way we're setting it up, advertising is probably not going to kick in until 6 months in. We want to make sure we're building up a fan base and that we're the right amount of content creators are on the platform. We don't want to have like 1,000 conservative podcasts and then or a bunch of country artists but no rock or no, you know what I mean. So that's the way it's going to curate early on as people find the content. But on the IP side as well, right? We talk about artist intellectual property protection, right? Well, I mean, honestly, and it ties back into what you're talking about the graphics and goes into Google Images and people, the problem is everybody thinks it's okay to steal images and create memes from that. No, that's a copyright violation, right? So if you've taken a video and you upload it to your channel, right? We're infusing AI into our back end. So I don't want to give away too much. Let's just say that when somebody uploads content to the platform, our learning machine learns that content, embeds it with, an actual encryption that was sourced from Jimmy Smith, shot on site at, Wisconsin during the riots, whatever it may be, right? It's more prevalent with artists, right? Because, I'll use YouTube as an example. Like, you want to hear a Van Halen song, you type in Van Halen, and like 35 different channels have a Van Halen video on there. One is the official. YouTube doesn't govern that. And let me say one thing too, because we were talking about this earlier. Don Henley and the Eagles, right? Think what you want about Don Henley. They have 30 people on staff that all they do is scour the internet looking for copyright infringements. Why? I mean, how much money is that costing? Let's just say they're paying data analysts 60 grand. I mean, you do the math on that, and that's only because the platforms, and we can at a later time talk about how AI is going to play into all this. They want to further devalue content, whether it's films, music. They want to open source everything. That's why AI and the learning models now are using existing. Sony just sued to have that stopped, but we're in a situation where AI is not going to help content. It's going to help people create content, right? And use beats and graphics. But I don't want to go too deeply into that. But people need to understand that AI is a good thing, yet it is not set up to be governed properly from theft of original art, right? So you got Spider-Man, you got a monkey. I want to see a Spider-Man monkey. Okay, where did the Spider-Man photo come from, and where did the monkey photo come from? Who owns those photos that's now being merged through whatever that program is to create the Spider-Man monkey, right? Somebody owns that. The AI is just reinterpreting and rendering out the prompts you give it. So I don't want to get off on that tangent, but it's very important to understand that as an artist, the only thing you have is your IP. And Prince touched on that in the video, right? It's like, I do all the work and you take 80% of it, right? Well, then there's the element of the theft of it, right? So we have ways in which, in other words, if I do a podcast, you do a podcast, and you want to, and this is why our marketplace is going to be so big, is that if I want to use a clip from your show on my show, you can simply put it into the marketplace, send me a link to zero out the cost of that. I can then have the licensing of your content to use on my own show, and it's been approved, whatever it may be. Ultimately, this is about taking back control for artists, and that starts with IP. And if they can control their IP and then not finding bootleg versions of it here, and here, that loses them money. So ultimately, this is about taking back a valuable time that artists need to create and deliver content. But more importantly, by bringing the communities together in one location and not have to waste labor, it's going to drastically increase their earnings because the communities will be together. They're all going to be working behind the scenes amongst themselves when the artist isn't even streaming or connecting with them, right? They're going to help grow the audience for you. Like right now, Rumble is a great platform, but you got text chat, right? that's only good when the broadcast is up and live, right? But then you got to copy that and send it to Facebook, whatever. It's like, imagine if that was all in one platform, and that's what CREADO is going to build.
And I'm excited because like when I'm watching the show, I have the different platforms up so I can monitor them. So I could see the chat on YouTube, I could see the chat on X, I could see the chat on Rumble, and StreamYard does it brings some of those chats into one platform that I get to see, but the audience doesn't get to see that. It's just whatever platform they're only getting to interact with them, and I'm just like, because these chats, they're almost like a whole nother show. Like it's funny, especially when I'm doing a live, and you get in there, it's like, man, I want to jump in the chat because you guys are having a good time, and they don't realize, I'm like, man, if these guys don't even realize they're talking about the same thing, it would even facilitate a bigger conversation that's taking place.
That's the disconnect. Yeah.
But there's the disconnect that's there. I want to get into, so we can wrap this up. I want to get into the future of CREADO. And for those that are watching, I'm like, hey, this sounds great. I want to know how I can be a part of it. But before I do, I want to play the CREADO clip trailer to give people a taste of what this looks like. And then we'll come back and we'll wrap this up and let people know how they can find it and how they can be a part of it and how we can all make this happen quicker than later.
In the 70s, 80s, and 90s was the best time to be alive. It was the best era for storytellers and songwriters, and their cult classics became the anthems and soundtracks that shaped our lives. After the Telecommunications Act of 1996, the corporate takeover began, starting with the local radio stations, concert venues, and promoters. Soon after, the consolidation of the studios and the media. Within a few decades, these companies had control over everything. The concepts, everything that was written, produced, distributed, and eventually consumed. Albert Einstein once said, "Everything that is great and inspiring is created by the individual who can labor in freedom." As artists, we believe that the free flow of ideas is vital to a strong culture. It is long past time for a new, independent entertainment ecosystem. An ecosystem that is not governed by gatekeepers and the corporations, but rather by those who create and consume it. At CREADO, we are building that new ecosystem. A system that will empower filmmakers, musicians, entertainers, and podcasters to freely create and distribute all of their content in one location. A system where they can control their earning potential, protect their intellectual property, and engage directly with and build communities around their loyal fans. As we begin the next phase of development, we would love you to be a part of this, to restore freedom for all artists, including filmmakers, musicians, comedians, writers, producers, podcasters, and things that don't even exist yet. We believe that the future of entertainment will be delivered here on CREADO.
Such an amazing trailer that you got put together there, brother, man. For my listeners that are inspired by your vision, how can they support CREADO? And if you can, make sure to cover what are some of the benefits of becoming a founding member, and then additionally on top of that, what are the next steps for CREADO? Once these fundraising goals are met, and what can we expect in the near future for CREADO?
Sure. And we covered early on about, the control mechanisms that have controlling the entire system. So we decided early on that while we could have chased VC money and, dark money and things of that nature, we understood very, very quickly that it was going to take smaller investors and angel investors to make this happen. Now, granted, I said we were looking for 30 million before. We can get this done now between 3 to 5 million. So what that means is that, and I'll touch on the founding memberships after I'm done here. So we're raising an additional 3 million right now. We've finished the demo, right? So we're coming out of pre-seed phase into seed. phase now. And that the 3 million is going to allow us to onboard the rest of our technology team, to onboard legal, marketing, sales, and artist acquisition, which many of our founders have a big background in music and radio and podcasting, and so we have, thank God, we have those resources, and so that those dollars are going to allow us to create what we call our MVP, which is a minimum viable product. So that product in closed beta will be our test model, right? So when you create your MVP, you're creating the use case to the market. So at that point, we will onboard what we're calling early adopters, and have a bunch of artists from all different genres coming in, creating their account, setting everything up. And like I said, it's the test phase, right? If there's any bugs and there's any things that we need to fix, or an artist makes a great recommendation that we didn't think about, and artists are going to be very, very involved, right, during the development process. So investment would allow us to, we don't need the 3 right away, right? But if we can continue to raise capital here, the team is ready to go to start to build this out in what we think we can get done in probably 4 to 5 months. Assuming the team is in place, it may take us 30 days to onboard some additional team members, full-time equivalent employees. But we really stripped the budget down. There's no fluff. It's going to be virtually done during the startup period here. So we've really gone after and looked at the expenses that we need and don't need. And then, once it's to market, we can look at expanding from there. So the founding memberships are a way for your audience and others, and we've already got 1,000 or so signed up for this. But a founding membership will give your audience and others, for a one-time $80 charge, unlimited social media for life, and it will also give you unlimited channels for life. So, if a channel is a la carted at $1 a month, for example, right? You want to follow 30 people, it will cost you $30 a month. The sky's the limit. As many artists are on the platform you want to sign up to, it's all included in that. Kind of think of it like a Kickstarter kind of thing, where onboarding as an early adopter, will get you those lifetime benefits. And you will be the first on the platform that will help beta test this before it kind of goes live to the rest of the public. So you're going to be on board early and be able to, kind of help us, through this, right? Because without customer feedback, you don't have a product, right? You can't just build something and assume that the audience is going to want it. We know that they're going to want it, but in our scenario, we're not building some way out there widget that nobody's ever thought about. It's really, it's about building communities, and the communities are going to help us to be successful early on. So, and then from there on out, once it's live, once it's to market, and you're building up a customer base, then we can scale it up, right? So we're not myopic in thinking that we can reach Rumble's level or YouTube's level. However, it's going to be an organic movement that I think people start to adopt the platform, really kind of realize that, hey, I can go here, create the kind of communities I want, follow the artists that I want to follow, right? It may just be your favorite political podcasters. You're not into music or film. You have that choice, right? It's not the Netflix model where you got to pay $19.99 a month and then you got to watch what they're putting in front of you, right? Choice, consumer choice is what's lacking in the industry right now. So to reiterate, we're looking for accredited investors, which if you're an accredited investor, you know what that means. It's basically anybody that's making $200,000 a year annually, or $300,000 with a spouse, or has a net worth of over $1 million. So those are the investors we have on board. We've got tremendous people that are advocates for us. We have a lot of investors in Texas, a lot of them in Nashville area. So if we would love to discuss the concept with you further and show you, financially how that can benefit you as an investor. I don't want to throw out, key tips, but our projections show a 30 to 40x return at least for the investors based on the model. And our model is we take 30% on average of every subscription, right? And it that could change. We could do a VIP 80-20 level. There's a lot of things that can happen, especially if a big artist wants to join the platform. You can do things. But for the early adopter artists, I think they're all going to be at 80-20, which is what we've decided, right? So, if you want to support us, you can visit CREADO.media. And then we've got an investor tab, and we've also got a membership tab. So, and you can go check that out. You can check all of our information there. Investors, we got investor calls set up, so we'll run you through the process. On Twitter, we're at CREADO Media. And CREADO, for those who don't know, means created in Latin. So we used that tense because everything that's being delivered on the platform is being created, right? So we're not creating it. Although future phases, we will launch our own original series and music series, things like that, bringing in artists and doing really unique. And then eventually down the line, live stream concerts and special events and tours and all kinds of things like that. But that's at a later phase. We got to walk before we're running. So we're in a good spot right now. It took us a couple of years to kind of develop the concept in that pre-seed format. So we're ready to take that demo and turn it into an actual product to onboard customers. And like I said, we're going to be hitting June real quick. We would love nothing more than to have a huge fundraising round that can maybe get us, hopefully, there's no reason why we couldn't launch in January or February if the fundraising element is achieved.
Absolutely phenomenal. Become a founding member. The incentives are there for a very small fee, you guys. We're always talking about we want a home where we can have this kind of content. Here you have a well thought out, well invested in, and a team that knows what the heck they're talking about at CREADO. So make sure you guys visit CREADO.media. Links are down in the description. Stay tuned. We're going to break to commercial. When we come back, we'll have my final thoughts. And J-Man, once again, thanks for sharing time with me and the audience and bringing this to the forefront, man. It's not all patriots are carrying weapon systems, and providing a safe home for the information highway is definitely going to make you guys a patriot. Guys, I'll see you guys back in just a moment.
President's former national security advisor, Lieutenant General Michael Flynn, pleading guilty today to lying to the FBI.
Flynn knew exactly how the system worked. He knew exactly what the intel world had been up to. He understood its funding. They had to get rid of Flynn.
There was a moment where I just felt like I was drowning. So I'm in there with these other political appointees. They're all supposed to go in there and tell what they believe to be the truth. What they did was they took my assessment and they wanted me to change it. And I was like, I'm not changing it.
He was, by definition, the most dangerous possible person for Donald Trump to hire.
President Obama said, but I do have one specific recommendation. Stay away from Michael Flynn. He's bad news.
Over time, instead of being pounded down below the surface of the ocean, we started to fight. I'm now above the surface.
Ladies and gentlemen, generalflynn.com/alpha. You can watch that movie. It's everywhere. You can watch it on YouTube TV, Amazon, Apple TV. Get that film. I know there's a lot of controversy surrounding the general. He's taken a lot of attacks. You watch this film for yourself. I'm telling you right now, it doesn't matter how much you think you know about the general. You're going to be like, I did not know that. And you will walk away with a newfound respect for the man and support for him. So once again, generalflynn.com/alpha. Leave a review on Amazon. And the cool thing about Amazon is you can't leave a review unless you're an actual person that purchased the film. So it keeps the reviews honest there. You guys, what a heck of a conversation. What a heck of a show with Jason. You know, the time he took to share the vision with us with CREADO. And for those that are wondering, CREADO.media, links down in the description. I mean, what an incentive to be, founding member of a platform that is going to change the entire landscape of the way this industry is for the artists and for the consumer. We've all asked for it, and you heard in the last 90 minutes, like, it's here. It's like right there to be able to grab. We're that close. We just got to get the funding out there for those of you that qualify, to be in the position to do that. Links down in the description. For those that just want to be a founding member and get those incentives, links down in the description to do that. What I will say is we talk all the time about, this information warfare. We talk all the time about taking back control of our freedoms and our liberties. Is it just talk, or do you want to be someone who's actually invested in that fight? And here's one of those opportunities that you can become a part of that. And the reality is $80 is nothing compared to what you're going to be receiving when this thing launches. If it was me, I'd be charging a whole lot more than $80. But this is a choice that team has put together because they do care about the mission and what it's going to do for us. So take advantage. Links are down in the description. You guys, I do want to bring something on the screen to show you. More and more of you are doing this, which makes me very excited because this puts those Benjamins in Alpha's pocket. Let me go full screen with this so you can see this. Locals. Yes, that's right. When you become a monthly subscriber, all my content is free. You guys know I stand behind that. Right now, because we're in this information war, it's just this information. I don't feel right putting it behind a paywall. Once we win the war, that's going to be a whole nother conversation. But while we're in this war, I don't sign NDAs. One of the things that J-Man said when we're talking about, IP, intellectual property, my name is mine. The Alpha Warrior Show is mine. Nobody can take that from me. And why? Because you, the viewers, my audience, my family, you guys pave the way, through the financial support that comes into this podcast that I do. So for those that are like, hey, you know what? I've been taking free content for Alpha from a long time, and I want to help a brother out. Locals is one of the avenues that you can do that. If you're watching on Rumble, you can just go down, click on the link. It'll take you to this page, and you can subscribe for $5 a month or more if you want to be that gracious. Or some of the other links you can find that if you want to do it, you can do it through Patreon. You can do it through Rumble yourself. But like I said, Locals is something that once we can get some more time, we can do some more personal content for that. Some Q&As, private sessions with guests and things like that. I know we keep talking about it and we're trying to roll it out, and you guys have been patient with me, and I appreciate that. So just do me a favor on the way out, smash that like button, share this out, tag some people that that can probably be a part of CREADO. We all know somebody who knows somebody, and we need to get this particular show in front of those eyes. So with that, you guys, this has been the Alpha Warrior Show. First in, last out. Stick around for the people that support this channel, and I'll catch you guys next time. Monday, Tuesdays, Wednesdays, 9 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Pacific.
Are you worried about the effects that higher inflation rates will have on your investments? Are you trying to secure your retirement savings against losses, but you notice that inflation is a hot topic these days? But how dangerous are low inflation rates on your retirement savings? An inflation rate of 2% may not seem like much, but it means that prices will just about quintuple over the lifetime of the average American. And 4% average inflation rate means that something that costs $1 when they're born will cost $23 when they die. That demonstrates the danger of even low inflation rates. So when it comes to gold and inflation rates, many investors want to know whether inflation rates have an effect on gold prices. What history indicates is that over the long term, increased inflation should lead to correspondingly higher gold prices. From September 1971 to August 2020, gold grew 7.5 times as much as inflation. Not only can an investment in physical gold help protect your assets against the damage done by inflation, it can also help grow the value of your retirement portfolio over the long term. If you're looking to protect your retirement assets, why wait until stock markets crash and gold begins to rise in price?